Today we're going to talk about hip internal rotation, what it is, why it's important, how to self-assess yourself for it, and then a couple key mobility exercises that you can do if you have a hip internal rotation deficit. So first off, what is hip internal rotation? Hip internal rotation refers to the distal segment moving away from the midline, so the foot moving out like that. Why that's important and what that looks like in terms of the rear leg and the front leg in your pitching mechanics is to be able to properly segment and get into that position of full hip-shoulder separation. You need to be able to have sufficient internal rotation on that back hip to be able to get those hips open while keeping the upper half closed. So guys who are lacking are going to end up not being able to get into that fully hips open position while keeping the shoulders closed, and then everything's going to come together. So a lot of times lacking hip-shoulder separation, not necessarily a mechanical issue, sometimes it stems from a mobility issue. On the front leg, what that looks like is proper hip internal rotation. You can get a nice long deceleration around that front hip, and guys who are lacking, that knee is going to start to bow outward because they don't have sufficient motion to get around it. As far as how to test yourself for hip internal rotation deficit, what we're going to do is just lay down on your stomach, bend your feet to 90 degrees, and let your feet fall loosely out to the side. What we're looking for is a 35 to 45 degree angle at that end range without having to force it. Here are two favorite hip internal rotation correctives that you can use. So for the first one, we're just going to lay on our back. We're actually going to cross one foot over the opposite knee and allow that knee to loosely fall towards the ground. So your foot should stay in contact with the ground the entire time, and we're trying to feel a loose, gentle stretch at the hip. If you feel anything in your knee itself, in the medial knee, then you're going a little bit too far. The second option is we're going to take a kettlebell, and you're just going to hook your foot around that kettlebell. Try to keep your hips facing directly forward, and we're just, again, trying to feel a loose, gentle stretch in that hip, and anything in the knee, you're going a little bit too aggressively. For the third corrective, again, this is going to be a little bit more dynamic with the hip windshield wiper. So all you're going to do is let that knee fall in and work alternating sides up and down slowly. Again, trying to feel the stretch in the hip, not in the medial knee.